Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sat means truth, logos means a study or science, Sattology means a science of truth or study of truth, and which is a true antonym of mythology. Myth in Sanskrit means a lie, fake, or imagination. Mythology means a study of fake, study of lie, study of imagination. And the real word, why it was coined mythology, was it has no scientific, archaeological, astronomical basis, and therefore it was called a mythology, but it has been debunked conclusively. In my 7 books, I have conclusively proved, and I am convinced about it, where Ramayana and Mahabharata is a truth. Incidents did happen, and the places are existing, the names of the places are similar, and in some places where the names were changed, the ancient names are same as per Mahabharata. You will be surprised to know that Chin was called Chin in Mahabharata. Kerala was called Kerala in Mahabharata. So today's names are also the same of major places, including Kashmir. And the Uttar Kuru is common across Ramayana and Mahabharata, and it's the same place beyond the Kyrgyzstan river. And so when Arjun was going north, he passed through Kashmir, and when Sugriva's armies were going north, he also passed through that region. And so the mountain descriptions are the same. So the point which I'm saying is that the propaganda that the Indian ancient history was a mythology or was not real or it is fictional, all has been proved wrong, including Aryan invasion theory. Now it is conclusively getting proved slowly that the Arya, means a civilized person, went from India to Europe to civilize them. Europeans did not come to India to civilize them. So it is a reverse way getting true now. So, but the Western world is as usual silent. And my challenge to all the Western academics is this is the time to open your mouth and refute, because we want to hear that. Why did you put that blame in the first place? And now when we are producing a counter argument, you are silent because we know you don't have an answer. So today we have a very, very special guest, and we are going to go to Kashmir again to discover a new temple. And this is the ancient temple. It is our collective responsibility to maintain it and preserve it, and also try to see if we can bring it into our history books. And we have a very special guest who has come on our show many times. And without delay, let us welcome Sri Rajesh Kumar Singh.
Namaste Aditya ji and all the friends in the audience. It's my pleasure to interact with you again. As Mr. Aditya has been telling you all about Sattology, it's not only about fake things, it's also about concealing the things. If you don't tell the majority of the facts and just conceal it and never tell about it to word or the people, then slowly people forget it. And that too, when there is a tendency for people, the original people who were living there, they were forced to flee from there. And the remnants which are there, which could have been torchbearer of this continued civilization, they are not talked about. So that's why we again are talking about Kashmir, just to impress upon the fact that there is not only one temple, it's not only about Martand or about Awantipura or even Pandrethan. There are so many temples which were constructed over the ages by the kings, by the queens, by the ministers, by the common people. So these temples or the ruins of the temples which I have been talking about, I myself felt that they were not talked about earlier. And it was a very unfortunate thing. Now, when I found that I, being born in India, having very well educated, have access to all the educational opportunities, could not know or have not been told about these things. So what would have happened to other people? And to top on it, if there is a concerted effort from certain quarters to not to talk about these things, then the correct picture of India is not being presented. So with that note, I will start my presentation. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see that.
Yeah. So before I talk about Pandrethan, or let me talk about Pandrethan in a bit more. This is a place which is very much there in Srinagar itself, the modern capital. But most of you would be surprised that the original capital, Srinagari, was not the current capital, but the place which is by now known as Pandrethan. This was the ancient capital Srinagari, which was established by the ruler Asoka. And then after few centuries later on, another king shifted it a few kilometers away, about 5 kilometers away. However, the name Srinagari was associated with that. And the present place Pandrethan is now known as Purana Dhisthana. Purana, as the name indicates, old, and Adhisthana means the city. So Pandrethan has been derived from the name Purana Dhisthana, means old city. So this is the place which is the ancient Srinagari capital, now which was shifted later on after about say 600 years after Asoka has established to a near about 5 kilometers further, where the present capital Srinagar is there. Now this place is also not very far from Pandrethan. It is now in cantonment area, the temple which I'll be talking about. But before I talk about this temple, let us see how many or what were the other places which had temples dedicated to Shiva. Now, there is no particular reason for talking about Shiva temple, but in one presentation or in a very limited time, it's not possible to talk about all the temples which were constructed in Kashmir over the ages by many kings, their queens, their ministers, noble, and also common people. So in the past, I talked about Martand, which was dedicated to Surya, that is sun god. Avantiswamin temple in Awantipura, 32 kilometers away from Srinagar on the way to Anantnag, which was dedicated to Lord Vishnu. Today I have chosen that I will be talking about the Shiva temple, that is the temples which were dedicated to Shiva. It's not that they were constructed in isolation. They were being constructed simultaneously, as it happens today also in India. And since the ages, all forms of worship coexist in India and they all lead to the supreme God. So first I will talk about Shankaracharya temple. Many of you would be aware of this temple. This is the famous temple because this is being worshipped. And this is almost in the city. From the Dal Lake, you go hike to this temple by the road also. And by foot also, you can reach there. So figure 1 is a distant view where you can see it's not a modern temple. It was an old structure constructed some 1,000 years ago. And then it was further repaired. As you can see, it was not in a very good condition. In the figure 2, you can see. And why it's so important is that Shankaracharya, who traveled in the 8th century, almost all parts of India, specifically he established 4 mathas. He also came to Kashmir. He's believed to have interacted with many scholars there. And he also went to Sarda Peeth, which is now exactly not currently in India. It was a famous university on the name of the goddess Saraswati. So he came there, and that's why this temple is known as Shankaracharya temple. Architecturally, its base is octagonal, and if you see in figure 4, I have taken another temple which is from Bihar, Mundeswari. So what I want to time and again indicate that Kashmir was not developed in isolation. It was developing or culturally, or the thought process which were evolving, they were very much in consonance with the current thought process which were being established or being developed in other parts of country. And temples worship and manifestation through architecture is one form of it. There were, of course, a lot of things which were written in literature also. Unfortunately, most of them were damaged. Another group of temples which most of the people, even those who know about Martand, Awantipur, they don't know about this group of temples. This is near Wangat village and a stream, Naran Nag. In Kashmir, Nag represents a spring. There are a lot of springs there. Anant Nag, Veri Nag. So Naran Nag is also one of the springs there. And in Kashmir, and as in Indian philosophy also, in Indian practices also, we worship water also, as we worship other forms of nature. So river, springs, they all are like deity to us. And it's not that we isolate it from our whole living condition or living environment. So if you go towards Sonmarg, north side from Sri Nagar, about say 60 kilometers. So there are two groups of temples there. You see in figure 1, there is a stream, Wangat there. So it's a divine place. It has been like that. Beautiful river flowing in full. And during 6th, 7th century and later on also, two group of temples were constructed in close vicinity. Figure 2, if you see, there is one temple in center and about 6 temples are constructed nearby. There is a rectangular tank also which is monolith, has been carved out of a single stone, of course for ablution purposes. Unfortunately, as has happened in the case of almost all the temples of Kashmir during 14th century, they were demolished intentionally. So you will see they are in very poor condition here. So this is a lower group of temples. And when you go up from here, if you see, there is another group of temple where one temple is standing. Of course, ceiling is now new one. A shade has been put. It's not the original stone structure which you see, which would have been there at that time. This is known as Jesthesha group of temple. The lower one is known as Bhutesha group of temple. Now, what is important is that this is nothing new or peculiar to Kashmir, that near a river and a stream, you construct temples. I'll give you one example. I was there a year ago, Jageshwar. And all these names denote Lord Shiva. Bhutesh, Lord of Bhut, the 5 elements, 5 Bhuta, the god of 5 Bhuts, 5 elements from which the body is constructed, and he is controller of that. Jesthesa, Jesth means the elder, so the superior god, the elder god, and Jageshwar means the god of the lord of the whole world. So Shiva is and other god, we call them with different name. So what I was telling you is that Jageshwar is a place about 30 kilometers from Almora, in Almora district, from Almora city also, in Uttarakhand state of this state. And there also you'll find along a stream, a rivulet, large many, about 124 temples have been constructed in different groups. So it is nothing very peculiar and nothing different in the case of Kashmir. So why I tell it again and again is that there has been an image created in the mind of the people that Kashmir was some isolated land, has nothing to do with the ancient Indian culture, and so it developed on its own. It's totally wrong. As you can see, I have been telling you through different presentations that Kashmir was very much same as far as the evolution of various philosophical, art, architectural thought processes were concerned. And there has been an attempt in Kashmir and in other parts of India to demolish these temples because they were the first very potent, very visual symbols of our civilization. So this is a place where you can see this has been mentioned, coming back to it, Bhutesha and Jesthesha has been mentioned in the Raj Tarangini by the great chronicler, poet Kalhana, who mentions that Lalitaditya and other kings would come here, they would pray here and also donate lands and other things from their upkeep. And one other thing is that because of destruction, now people are not there who would go there and pray there, and these things are in a very bad shape. There is a spring, natural spring, which water is being collected in a pond, and this was a tirth. It's a pilgrim center where people would go and perform certain rituals. So we need to connect with it to highlight these aspects, restore them so that these things are not only restored, but are visited by more and more people, not as a tourist only, but also as a pilgrim. Then, as we move further in the time chronicle, I had already talked to you bit about Awantipura. So King Avantibarman constructed two major temples, though Kalhana talks about four of them, and Cunningham also had seen the ruins, but only two could be seen there. Avanti Swamin I discussed in detail last time, which was dedicated to Vishnu, and Avantishwara was dedicated to Lord Shiva. I am again emphasizing that the same king, whether it was Lalitaditya, who would visit the temples dedicated to Shiva, Vishnu, he would construct also in Parihaspura or to sun god in Martand or go to Wangat. So Avanti Barman also constructed a temple dedicated to Vishnu, which was known by the name of Avanti Barman, and Avantishwara by the name of the Shiva. Unfortunately, nothing much survived except the main temple, which was constructed in Panchayatana Shaili, Panchayatana style, that is 5 dimension, again linking it to the mainland of India as far as an architectural style is there, and a double chamber entrance gate can still be seen, some part of it, and some carvings are there. There are few temples remaining in another place which is now known as Patna. This place is on the Baramulla road. Baramulla is a district in Kashmir, and some of you who might have come to Kashmir or would have heard about Gulmarg. Gulmarg is a famous tourist place where is meadow is there. So this was originally, this place Patna, about 17 miles from Sri Nagar on that way, was established by the son of Avantibarman. It was known as Shankaracharya. From that, this place Patna has been derived. So there is a temple which was named after her queen, because her queen has patronized that, which is known as Sugandhesa temple. Sugandha was her name. So Sugandheshwar, the god of, lord of Sugandha. Temple, you can see I am showing it's in ruined condition. Sikhara, or the top of the temple pinnacle, is no more there. Some fragments are photographed here, lying here and there. You can see certain designs are there. In the Patan itself, at some distance, there was another temple constructed by the king himself. Shankar Varmana, the king himself, constructed this temple, which is known as Gauri Shankar Temple or Shankar Gaurishwar Temple. Means Gauri Shankar is the name of goddess Parvati and Shiva, and Shankar Gaurishwar is again Shankar Gauri and the lord of it. Now, this temple is buried beneath the ground as far as its plinth is concerned. So what you can see is only the structure above the plinth here. And there are two chambers, which is there. This is the Garbhagriha, somewhere here, if you see from the top. This is the Garbhagriha in 9 holes. So this just shows that the main deity was placed here. Okay. Now we will come to Pandrethan back. I talked about Pandrethan. It was established at the old Sri Nagar Purana Adhisthana. And then I also talked about few of the group of the temples at Wangat, at Awantipura, and Shankaracharya temple at Gopadre Hill, or the Shankaracharya Hill in Sri Nagar, and at Shankarapatna or Patna. There are few more temples, Fatehgarh and other places, which I'm not talking about, but I tried to give you a glimpse of many places where Shiva was being worshipped. He was very popular. He is still popular. The god, goddess in all forms are very popular. However, unfortunately, so many temples were demolished. So it will give you an indication of the magnitude of destruction having been caused in Kashmir as far as the temple is concerned. And there were libraries also, books were there also. They were also burnt along with it. So we have damaged the ancient civilization, the ancient heritage to a large extent, and not much of effort has been done to resurrect it, to reconstruct it. For which the very first thing is that to create awareness. We shall know about each other, we shall talk about each other, and we shall retrieve all these manifestations of heritage which were fruits of the intellectual, the academic interaction power of human civilization. Okay, so on the screen now you can see the Shiva Temple Pandrethan in earlier days, not in ancient days, but in earlier days, means 9th centuries. Britishers, when they came here, Vigne, Cunningham. So there are, these photographs are available on website, and because they have been printed in their books, you can see that in the figure 1 and 2, part of temple up to the plinth. In the case of Patna, Gauri Shankar temple, the plinth is buried in the land. Here it is submerged in water. So it is surrounded by natural spring. Now there is a debate where originally when this temple was constructed, there was a spring or not, has not been established about, but the earliest picture which are available here indicates that it was surrounded by the spring here. And in the right hand side, that is figure 3, you can see that water is, even water level you can see in the Sanctum Sanctorum also. Now this is the very important reason why this temple has survived, because Pandrethan did not have only one temple, which now we can see. The title of my presentation today may be misleading. With the help of Pandrethan temple, I am trying to tell about all those temples which were constructed, which were dedicated to Shiva, to Gauri, to Vishnu, to Sun, to Ganesha, and they were destroyed. And mind you, this temple is not mentioned in Kalhanaj Rastarangali because its size is not that massive. If you compare it with Martand or Awantipura, it is relatively very small. It is not very small temple, but compared to the Martand and Avanti Swami temple and Avantishwara temple, it is a very small temple. Now, this is the reason. Means this being in midst of a spring is the main reason why it survived. Because those who did not believe in the temple worshipping and were hell-bent on breaking them during the 14th century could not have reached this place. And that's why this temple has survived. Unfortunately, they demolished many other temples and stupas which were constructed in the Purana Desh Thana, that is the old capital. Even if the capital was shifted by Pravarshena and he established a new kingdom, Pravarpura, 5 kilometers away, this place being very near to the new capital, continued to enjoy the patronage of the kings, queens. So the Vain song, he visited Kashmir and he stayed there for 2 years. And he has recorded in detail. He has also recorded that there were few temples and stupas were there, but none of them can be seen there. So massive was the destruction there. Later on, now this area is now in cantonment. And you see it in a better area. But in 1920s and 30s, Mr. Dayaram Sani, who was the then Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, he got a lot of excavation done. And there, apart from this temple, about 20 idols of Buddhist faith and of the Sanatan faith, that is dedicated to Vishnu, dedicated to Shiva, and Matrika's statues were recovered from them, and they are now placed in SPS Sri Prakash Singh Museum in Sri Nagar. And it is written, Cunningham also saw a large Sivalinga, fragments of which he could recover. And this temple, which was known as Pani temple, was initially confused with the Meruvardhan Swami temple, because that temple is mentioned in Kalhanaj Rastarangali. But Kalhanaj Rastarangali mentioned that that was dedicated to Vishnu. And this is a Shiva temple. So that temple has been demolished. And it is believed that this temple may be the Rilhaneshwar temple. A minister Rilhan has constructed it. Anyway, what is more important now is that this temple is now in quite a good condition. If you see, this Kalasha has been placed now. Worship is being performed. This is a Sivalinga, new one. Even Shankaracharya from Kamkoti has come here and he has worshipped here. Ceiling is intact, means when you see from bottom to top from the sanctum, you can see beautiful carvings. Now, this is a very unique thing which have survived. And here, if you see, I'm not going in detail, but what I will say, the art, which is mostly divine art in Indian context, on temples you will find, Vidyadharas. They are flying with garlands, creating an ambience of divinity. I recall in one of the talk, when I was taking the very first talk on the Dasavatara temple, and I was talking about the Dasavatara temple, Mr. Aditya has asked me whether the worship is being practiced there or not. And that's not practiced there. However, here in this temple, now you can worship. The reason is this: it is now established in cantonment area. It is under security, protection. Nobody can harm it, and people are there to worship. If that thing happens with all other temples in Awantipura, in Martand, in Wangat, then they can also be reconstructed and Pran Pratishtha can be done and they can be consecrated here. Now, as I talked to you earlier, this is relatively a very small temple. It's not exactly in relation to their size, but here is the main temple of Martand, and I have placed juxtaposed the Pandrethan temple here just to show you that what is the significance apart from other significance. One of the significance is that this is one of the few temples where you can see the ceiling or the roof, which is double triangular pediment intact here. And this gives an idea how the top or the roof of the Martand or the Awantipur temples would have been there. So luckily, because of its smaller size and being located amidst a spring water source, it has survived. Now, another significance which I would talk to about, architectural I have talked about. In India, we worship Shiva, Vishnu in different forms. Last time when I talked about worship of Vishnu, I also talked about Bakunt Chaturmukhi, which is very typical in Kashmir. Here I have depicted 3 temples on the screen. While figure 1 and figure 3 are from Kashmir, figure 2 is from Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, the place which I talked about, Jageshwar. I have taken one of the 124 temples here. Now, what is unique or important here is that on the facade, just above the lintel, in all the 3 temples, you will see a figure depicted, which I have shown in corresponding figures, figure 1A, figure 2B, figure 3B. We know him as Lakulisha. When I initially told you that some of the academics confused Pandrethan Shiva temple with Meruvardhan Swami temple, which was dedicated to Vishnu, it could be established on this basis that because this temple has an idol of Lakulish, it is definitely a Shiva temple. And the same depiction is seen in another temple from Sri Nagar, which is smaller as compared to the Pandrethan temple, but again a bit better preserved. If you see here, the top has been destructed. Here even you have the top Amulaka also intact. There also you see Lakulish here depicted. And just to show you that in Indian heritage, at least as far as Kashmir is concerned, none of the architectural or sculptural depictions were in isolation. They were as much prevalent in the mainland, in certain parts of it, as it were here. I have taken a temple from Jageshwar, where you can see Lakulis. Now, Lakulis is believed a god who carries Lakul, dand, a stick. He is a teacher. He is a preacher in Saiva philosophy. He is believed to be 28th incarnation of Lord Shiva. And he was not from Kashmir. He was born in Gujarat, in Kaya Varohan. So there are a lot of linkages which is established. Why? There is a place known as Achabal in Kashmir, where King Bhoj of 11th century, who would rule in the Malwa region, that is Gujarat, MP, he sent a lot of gold to his counterpart in Kashmir at that time, to King Anant, to get constructed a kund, a pond known as Pap Sudana Kund, Pap Sudana tank. Meaning, if you take the water, do ablution or pour on your head, so you purify yourself. That was the belief. And that king, it is said, Raja Bhoj, King Bhoj, would get the water from King Anant from Pap Sudana tank, and King Anant would set water in flasks made of glass. And it is conjectured, it is believed that Lakulisa, who was a deity, a form of Shiva which was being worshipped very prominently in this western part of India, this thought process would have carried to Kashmir during that period. And you see the manifestation not only in Kashmir, it's not restricted to Kashmir only, in two temples, that is at Payar and at Pandrethan, as also in Jageshwar, in Odisha. So Indian philosophy's continuity can be demonstrated through the study of art and architecture, and that's what I have been trying to do. One more aspect I'll talk, though there are many aspects of Shiva, and a lecture or two or a series of lectures, even they would be not sufficient to talk about the kind of worshipping in India we do to our lords. Shiva's manifestation is worshipped in different forms. One is Lakulisha here. If you see here in figure 2b at the top, I think that is, sorry, it's not there. Here you can see, right? Three-head representation of Shiva is there. This is known as Mahesh Murti, Mahaish, the great god. He is depicted in three forms of three heads, four heads, but it is carved in round, and sometimes in 5 head also. So I have already talked about Lakulis, which you can see in figure 2 here, manifested in Payar in Pandrethan. Now let us see one more representation having been seen in the Kashmir depiction, that is of Mahesh. Figure 1 depicts the representation of Mahesh, which is not on the site. It was not carved on the Pandrethan Shiva temple, though on the Payar, on the 4 sides, Shiva's representation is there. One is of Lakulis, one is of Mahesh, one is of Nataraj, and the 4th one is of Bhairava. Fortunately, from the remains of the temples, the 20 idols which were excavated in 1920s and 30s by Dayaram Sahni, few of them represent Mahesh Murti here. And again, I will emphasize that this is not only in Jageshwar or in Kashmir. I'll show you 2 more examples, which many of you would not have heard about. There is one place in Baroli. Unfortunately, you see it's defaced, badly defaced. So Kashmir is not the only place where this destruction of temples, defacing of idols has been happening. So, but luckily, this is from a very remote area in the village side. The nearest city, the populous city is Jhansi. Some of you might have heard about the Queen of Jhansi, which fought with valor with Britishers during 1857, first struggle of freedom for India. So there you can see the same depiction. Same in the means Shiva is being depicted with three heads. The front one is Soumya, neutral. Right one in all the three, here if you see very carefully, with different means, it's ferocious. And the left one from your side, and if we see from this side, the right one here is feminine, Uma-like, Devi-like. So the god in Indian philosophy has been seen in different perspectives, part of the same supreme god. And as we also, as a human, behave differently in different times. So Kashmir also has manifested Shiva Mahesh Murti. So this is to emphasize again and again, and I'll continue to do so, that in Kashmir there are many facets of Indian civilization, ancient Indian cultural heritage, which are to be learnt about. Even though a lot of destruction has appeared, they are linked with the mainland of India, and they are part of Indian thought process, civilization, not only as a geographical entity, but also as a cultural entity. With that, I would conclude my presentation. Thank you.
So thank you, Rajeshji, and what a wonderful presentation. The point is, you mentioned many things in the middle, and I would like to ask you more on that. That this temple is safe only because it is in the cantonment area, and most of the Americans may not know what is cantonment. Cantonment is an area of army which is protected by the army.
Very true.
And that is the most remarkable thing about this temple preservation, why others could not be protected. Do you think that that is the future of preserving Indian history? They have to be put in the middle of the armed forces?
See, you are right. Till a situation is created where common people live there and they're able to protect it, it certainly emphasizes that aspect that in given condition which prevailed in Kashmir, even in modern India during 90s, etc. Because the cantonment would have come earlier. But why it remained? Because there would have been reason, like in Bamia it happened. In very modern times, the idols were destroyed. So it's very true. There are two things I tell. First, that it's in cantonment, protected by army. And secondly, it is being worshipped also. See, the situation is same as it is at Martand or at Dasavatar temple, but no worshipping is being done. But a new sibling has been placed there. Pran Pratishtha has been done, consecration has been done. So this certainly gives an idea that how we can go ahead till people themselves are responsible or in a condition to preserve these things.
So the history shows that temples were always protected by the kings. And we have seen that in Kashmir, which is used to be a Hindu land, and it is being only, I'm talking about the valley, not any other place, because the valley is the biggest problem we have. In terms of Hindus are facing the maximum problem, but the governments, and when they talk about protecting the people, they're only not protecting everybody's history. They're only protecting their history, or the majority. If it is a Muslim majority who oppose Hindu worship, they only protect their history. Do you think it can be a common statement drawn like that, or no?
See, what I would see that what has happened in Kashmir individually, I found that a civilization which was manifested in the form of temples at least from 4th to 14th century, it was destroyed in a very small time. And nothing could be done in the valley to resurrect it, so much so that people have started disassociating these temples or the kind of people who were living there with them. And slowly you see those people, I mean Hindus, they have been forced to flood it. So there has to be an effort to make people aware. And if awareness comes slowly, people will know about and will try to make effort to reconstruct our heritage to protect them for posterity.
Isn't that should be the effect of all the Hindus who are voting for these politicians and also other Indians who are favorable to these history preservation, that they need to make sure their politicians follow their vote, not just get elected and then do not follow it. Do you think the political protection is needed or a civilian protection is needed, or just moving them all to the Indian army or Indian police forces?
No, to move to Indian police forces or Indian army would not be practicable, as you can see. But there has to be effort on all the front. On see, and things have been changing. Few years back, even I did not know about these temples. But now, not only I have visited, but have also photographed these and have been talking about these temples to your channel through everybody. So the effort has to be concerted effort has to be made both politically and at the people level also.
So thank you, Rajesh ji, for a wonderful presentation and a great insight into this temple. And I hope people who are watching this video would like to speak to their local representatives and also the Archaeological Society of India, which doesn't allow people to worship the ancient temples. So if they preserve something, then as per the law given by the British to them, Alexander Cunningham, they do not allow any worship. So all the very ancient temples, beautifully restored by ASI, but not being worshipped, which is makes it pretty useless. And also based on the information in our last show, I did contact the Museum of LA, the county museum, and I asked them the return of that Murti to us back. If that happens,
Okay.
then we'll set up a new temple for them in Los Angeles, if that happens. Because by US law, if anything has been procured legally, you cannot send it out of the country. So that was bought by some American trader and then donated to the museum. So that's how it happened. So I did get into that deeply. I told you I will get into that, and I did do that.
Yeah, that's a good outcome of that talk at least. And
Yes.
I will just add what you said. See, it's not a uniform policy. Like in Dasavatar temple, no worship is being allowed. But in the Pandrethan, you can see worship is being allowed. And this is also a protected monument of Archaeological Survey of India. And there are many temples which are protected by Archaeological Survey of India in South India, which are in very good condition, and they are being managed by Devasthanam, and worship is being done. So I individually feel that worship shall be slowly allowed at all the places like Martand, Awantipura, Wangat, and that will help in people going there, Hindus and pilgrims going there, and to preserve our cultural heritage.
See, the thing is, it is allowed because it is under cantonment. That's why it is allowed. Because the laws in the cantonment change. The laws are then more of the federal laws, central laws, than state laws. Is that the reason, maybe?
No, see, Archaeological Survey of India and Army both belong to central government here. So it's more of education, I feel. Like you have raised the question, I have understood, I have shared my views, and I have shared not only here in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, there are huge temples. They were never destroyed, of course. Um, they are some of them are centrally protected monuments, but worship is full-fledged allowed there.
I hope all other temples they start allowing that ASI, and my request to ASI will be that do it if it today is the time. And we'll come back with some more interesting information. I hope all of you love the show. I loved it. I learned so much, and also you have put the image numbers down now, and so it is clearly visible more. And thank you all very much for joining today's show. And do watch it on YouTube and comment on it as well. And we will make it live one of these days. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste, Aditya ji, and all the viewers. Thank you very much.